Know a little bit more about energy, especially when it pertains to the human body than most people, because that's the business I'm in. Again, the Arconia is about energy medicine. We heal using energy. But in the process of learning that, we also found out what wavelengths and energy is not good for you. And how I got into with the R2L was that I developed it for our family, as we would hear more and more, not only from things in the press, but also in doctors that we deal with, their concerns about, people would say, I just don't feel right when I use my cell phone, you know, and they would ask questions about it. And when we looked into it, we realized that microwave radiation is in the same wavelength as the microwave oven that you're cooking with. Not exactly in the same bandwidth, but in the same basic pattern. So it does the same thing. And the reason that it was chosen for cellular communication is it penetrates walls and doors and ceilings and cars as you're driving. It's a great tool. I mean, to transmit that information, whether it be a cell phone call or data, you need something that can penetrate the surroundings that you're in day by day. But there's a downside to that, because again, if it's penetrating all your walls in the metal in your car, it's also penetrating you. So over the course of time, what is that doing to you? As you see, there are more and more articles written, even by our own FDA, about the effects of low-level radiation in the form of microwave and what that can potentially do to you. We know from the FDA's own findings itself that it causes a difference in metabolism of sugars in the brain. You'll find there's more dilation of blood in the area because you're heating up the area by that radiation, just like it would food in your microwave oven. And because of that, that can't be good for you. And my first experience that I visibly noticed the effects of radio frequencies and the damage was when I was on the USS Saratoga, an aircraft carrier for the US Navy. And they had a thing called Vulture's Row, where all the radars were at. And there were times when they would warn everybody to stay away when the radiation was on. And you would see birds that would actually sit on the rails around it and the gangplanks up there. When they would, as soon as the radar would turn towards them, they would instantly fry. They'd instantly die from the radiation from the radars. So you can see that type of radiation, which is microwave, can be extremely dangerous. I did it to protect my family and myself in the secondary thought, because we're not giving up our cell phones. None of us are. Everybody uses them, and they use them more and more, especially teenagers, using more and more all the time. So what I try to do is come up with a device that will protect us as much as we could. Again, with a cell phone, you cannot get rid of all the radiation because that's what it uses to communicate. So that would be an impractical device to have. But we can reduce it as much as it's needed strictly for the communication and get rid of the extra. And this is the idea behind the R2L, which just to take away all the radiation that wasn't required for the communication. And it was quite a challenge to be able to do that. It took 7 years to actually develop it to a point where it is today. Where it actually will, and we have had a lot of testing throughout the world in laboratories all over the world to prove not only do we reduce the radiation, you know, at its highest form, when the cell phone is turned up all the way, you'll see a great reduction in radiation, but cell phones aren't always turned up all the way. If you're next to a cell phone tower, the power in your cell phone is turned down automatically. So it reduces a smaller amount of radiation because it doesn't need to reduce more than that. If you reduce more than that, you lose the call. The first thing, before we actually had test results, we turned around, we started giving it to doctor friends of ours. We deal with a lot of doctors, and give it to them and their family. We'd make prototypes and give them to them. And then they would talk to their patients about it. And matter of fact, some of the patients would ask, even before the doctor even knew that we had this, is there anything I can do to reduce cell phone radiation? I'm concerned. My granddaughter is on it all the time or whatnot. So there was always questions, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it until I started thinking about it. What is this doing to my family? And as we gave prototypes out, and more people learned about it, more and more people wanted it. So then we said, well, let's really find out how much radiation we're removing. I know one thing, because the R2L is a passive device. By passive, it means there's no internal power. So there's nothing that powers it up by itself. There's no battery or anything. So it's powered strictly by the radiation from the cell phone. So that being said, to power it up, there has to be a loss of power in order to light up that little light. Well, the loss of power would be the radiation it's extracting from the cell phone. That's what powers up the LED. And knowing that, I didn't know how much it was when I first designed it. And quite frankly, my first prototype, it only reduced 40%. But then I had an idea about changing the geometry of the antenna. And so as I started, I learned about antenna technology, and then I turned around and started different types of antennas and whatnot. And then as I built prototypes and tested them, I realized I'm getting much more out of this particular design. And that's what we actually got a patent on. Is one of the patents is on actually the design of the antennas, which is very unique. And then every time we'd resubmit for more testing, we would get better and better and better results to a point we got a plateau. And this seems to be about as good as we can do. And that's reflected in the R2L. Like on the iPhones, i4 and 5s, you're going to get over 70% reduction at the highest output. That means that if you're out in the country and you're far from a tower and your signal bar is really low, and you'll notice when the R2L is on your phone, it lights up a lot and very brightly, and it flashes either all the time or it appears to be continually on, or very rapidly. But if you're inside of a city in a close confined area where there's a lot of cell phone repeater stations around, and your signal bar is all the way up as high as it goes, you notice the R2L will just flash occasionally, or you won't even notice it at all. It happens so quickly or so dimly that it's imperceivable to you. It's still working. It's just that you don't need to reduce much radiation, because if you reduce too much, you would lose your call. If this wasn't my product, and I saw it in a store, I personally would buy it, and I'm not being biased about it. I'm in the healthcare business. And the reason we're in it because we believe in it. We're getting older ourselves, and we want to be as healthy as possible. I don't know how long I'm going to live, but I want to live as comfortably for as long as I can. I'm still active. I like to stay active. Not only myself, my wife, and all my family and friends and kids and grandkids. If people realize the potential danger of cell phone radiation over a long period of time, if they could have stopped it with a small little inexpensive device, they would. I know I would. Buy several, not only for myself and my whole family. It's a simple investment, a cheap investment that helps you to mitigate the risk that you're exposed to every time you have that cell phone on your body. And we've come up with a way of mass producing it very inexpensively, so that way we can offer it to the consumer at a really good rate based on what the technology is. There's a lot of high-tech stuff on that little thing.